morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at a brand new stadium card that's going to be coming along in Cosmic Eclipse. It is called Chaos Vortex, or at least that is the translation the lovely Antoine Boulet has given us. And just as a side note, giving us all the translations here. Yay! So Chaos Vortex then. It's a new stadium and it's a little bit of a weird one. What it says, according to Antoine, is, well, nothing. It doesn't actually do anything. It is a stadium card, and while it is in play, it does nothing. However, when a stadium card with a different name is played by either player, after discarding this stadium, immediately discard the new stadium without activating any of its effects. Oh, well, that's pretty nice. You see, it doesn't actually do anything. But what it does do is it stops your opponent playing a stadium. Now, I know the phrasing here is getting all kinds of muddled up, so let me try and be clear. It is a stadium that, while it is in play, does nothing, but it prevents your opponent from playing another stadium. At the time when they go to play a stadium, then it stops them doing anything. That stadium does nothing. And this is really, really good. You see, there are a bunch of decks out there that don't really want to play a stadium, but we are in a format at the moment where you kind of have to play stadiums. Because, you know, stadiums. They're everywhere. I mean, if we look at, you know, the decks that did really well at the World Championships, we can see the kind of stadiums that tend to be played in the format we've got at the moment. So if you take a deck like Mewtwo and Mew, for instance, they tend to be playing Giant Half and maybe Viridian Forest. They are stadiums which are there to just grab your energy out. Viridian Forest, discard one card from your hand, search for a basic energy. Giant Half, discard one card from your hand, search for 2 basic energy, and they can be any basic energy you like as long as they're fire. Cool. And we see this in a bunch of fire decks. Now, if we take a look at kind of your average Reshiram and Charizard list, we see that they again tend to play Giant Half. Now, they won't be playing Viridian Forest. Mewtwo and Mew plays Viridian Forest because they will be playing the odd Psychic Energy. So that's alright for them. But when you're getting into Reshiram and Charizard, they're all about Giant Half. With a little bit of Heat Factory Prism Star, you get to discard a card from your hand, as long as it's a fire energy, and then draw 3 cards. We can have a look at Blacephalon decks that will be playing that Heat Factory Prism Star, but they'll usually be playing a little bit of Ultra Space as well, because Ultra Space allows you to search your deck for an Ultra Beast and put it into your hand. It's excellent search for those Ultra Beasts. And then the other deck that was big at the World Championships was Pikachu and Zekrom, and they tend to play Thunder Mountain, which reduces their attack cost by 1 lightning energy, but then they don't tend to play very many other... They don't need to play any other stadiums. So what they tend to do instead is play Lysander Labs, and this is something that a lot of people do nowadays. I don't have a stadium to play. I'm going to go ahead and play Lysander Labs, because I don't know why not. You might as well. And that stops all effects of tools. So Spell Tag doesn't drop damage, and especially U-Turn Board and Escape Board will not actually do anything. They won't let you retreat easier, and Escape Board won't let you retreat when you're asleep or paralyzed, etc. Little bit of a pain, ladies and gentlemen, little bit of a pain. The other option people have at the moment is Power Plant, and I expect Power Plant to be played a lot more as we go forward. And the reason very simply is Mewtwo and Mew just won the Pokemon World Championships, and it relies on an ability. Plus, they tend to play Jirachi to make sure they're not hit for weakness, which is an ability. And pretty much every deck at the moment tends to play Dedenne, which, stop me if you've heard this one before, tends to rely on abilities. You see where we're going with this, ladies and gentlemen. You see where we're going with this. The point I'm making is that stadiums are a huge part of the format at the moment. Chaos Vortex stops them all doing anything, and it discards them. And bearing in mind, right, discarding stadiums at the moment isn't easy. Field blower's gone away. And that was what we were using to discard stadiums. Now, if you want to get rid of tools, you can use Lysander Labs, which doesn't get rid of the tool, but it does stop them doing anything. But if you want to get rid of stadiums, you've basically got two options. You've got the one that nobody's using, that being Faber, which lets you just lost zone a stadium in play. And you've got the one that a bunch of people are using, that being the Marshadow from Unbroken Bonds. It sits on the bench, and at some point during your turn, you may discard it and then discard a stadium in play. Although I suppose technically discard stadium and then discard Marshadow. So your stadium's likely to stay in play. So really nowadays we're in a format where everyone's getting rid of stadiums by playing their own stadiums. And that is a format in which Chaos Vortex thrives. You play Chaos Vortex and your opponent can get rid of it, but they have to burn their own stadium to do so. Generally speaking, let's say for argument's sake, you're playing 4 Lysander Labs and your opponent is playing 4 Power Plant. Let's say you're playing something like Mewtwo and Mew, and you are really reliant on abilities. You have to wait for your opponent to play a Power Plant, and essentially every Power Plant they play, you counter with a Lysander Labs, and then in theory you win the Stadium War because you went second. If you play the first stadium, they, oh look, their stadium is the one that's staying in play. And it can be a very awkward situation. It's why people tend to play Marshadow. The great thing about Chaos Vortex here is, let's say you're playing Mewtwo and Mew, and you don't really care about playing Lysander, and you might, but let's say that you don't really care about Lysander Labs, you just really want your opponent to not hurt you with Power Plant. And Mewtwo and Mew is extremely reliant on abilities. So you just play 4 of these. And the best thing your opponent can do is use Marshadow to take out Chaos Vortex and then play their Power Plant. Except if you follow through the logic, Chaos Vortex will take out 2 Power Plant. Because you see, if your opponent's got a Power Plant in play, you get rid of it using Chaos Vortex 1 down. If they go to play a second, they'll get rid of Chaos Vortex, but then it will immediately get rid of this new Power Plant without doing anything, and all of a sudden that one Chaos Vortex has actually got rid of 2 Power Plant. This is the perfect stadium for if you don't really care what stadium you play, you are just scared of other stadiums. If you're a non-GX deck and you're using Shrine of Punishment in order to drop damage onto your opponent's GXs, you ain't going to look twice at Chaos Vortex. Shrine of Punishment is too important. If you are desperate to tech against things like Mewtwo and Mew and Dedenne, you're going to have to play Power Plant. If you're one of these fire decks that is desperate to get your fire energy so that you can get rolling, attaching them and drawing cards with Welder, you're going to play Giant Hearth and probably 1 Heat Factory Prism Star. If you're an Ultra Beast deck, you're probably going to want to play Ultra Space. There are plenty of decks that will not play Chaos Vortex because there is a specific stadium that they want to play. But by the same token, there are plenty of decks that just really want to counter stadiums. If you're really reliant on using, let's say, Jirachi with a skateboard, you are just terrified of Lysander Labs. Chaos Vortex has got your back. Mewtwo and Mew, as previously mentioned, is terrified of Power Plant. This has got your back. If you're a GX heavy deck and you know that your opponent cannot hit the numbers unless they play Shrine of Punishment, that's what you're scared of. In all of these situations, Chaos Vortex becomes amazing. And the fact of the matter is, we're in a format at the moment, as I spent a few minutes going through towards the beginning of the video, where stadiums are here. Stadiums are a big, big part of the format. We saw that at Worlds. So your only 2 options are admit that you're not going to play stadiums and that you are going to let your opponent have their way with whatever stadium they like, which is an extremely dangerous way to play the game, or play your own stadiums. And if you don't care about what stadium you play, this is the perfect counter stadium for whatever. You don't need to put down the first, second, whatever. You can put this down first, knowing that when your opponent plays it, they lose theirs. Or you can let your opponent play theirs, you get rid of it with this, and their next one. And your opponent's playing one Marshadow, really doesn't matter. You are going to be absolutely fine. I've titled this video something along the lines of the perfect counter stadium, and it is the perfect counter stadium. I adore it. I think it's a 5 WotC card. I think this is one of those cards that for certain decks is going to be an absolute must play, and I think it is going to be in a variety of decks. If I'm playing Mewtwo and Mew, my biggest worry is Power Plant, and this is a better counter stadium than playing something else. Now, you might want your energy for Welder, in which case, fine, play Giant Half, but this is just an example. I think this is brilliant. But I'd like to know what you think, ladies and gentlemen, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWotC, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WotCplays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.